Welcome everyone from sunny Colorado. It is a balmy 34 degrees outside and I am ready to go for a run, which is one of my other hobbies that I'm a little obsessed with. I want to tell you about my progress with my new prosthetic. First, I want to tell you about my journey to actually getting it in the first place. In 2021, I decided that I was gonna fully lean into getting a motorcycle and trying to do it the right way. I signed up for the MSF course. I looked into different types of motorcycles. I watched hours upon hours upon hours of YouTube videos. I read as much literature as I could find online about motorcycles. But there's one unique situation that I'm in. I needed a prosthetic if I was going to ride a motorcycle because I don't have all of the equipment that most other motorcycle riders have. I joined Facebook groups for people like me, but I didn't really see any videos about people like me specifically and following them on their journey. I only saw one video about the prosthetic that I'm using now. It took me a lot of time to work up the courage to call a prosthetist and make an appointment, because up to this point I had spent decades not using a prosthetic for any part of my life. I had one when I was maybe 2 or 3, and then it got in my way, and I decided that I could just function perfectly fine without one. But when I started looking into motorcycles, I thought that it would be very useful to have 2 limbs attached to the handlebars. I want to say in September, I contacted them, maybe September, October, and started the process. And let me tell you, it wasn't necessarily a difficult process, but it was a long process. And it's mostly because of my insurance. My first insurance completely flat out denied me because they said it's a motorcycle prosthesis. It's not necessary for functioning as a human being in normal life, therefore you don't need it. So I switched over insurance carriers. I switched over and then I filed again. And by this point, I had already bought my motorcycle. I already took the MSF course. I got the motorcycle endorsement on my license. I bought the motorcycle and I was already starting to ride it and to practice with it by the time that I switched carriers and tried to get the prosthetic. It was still a long, drawn-out process, and in the meantime, I went to the prosthetist. I met with them, asked all my questions, got fitted, got the little attachment, and they said that they can put everything together, but they can't start making it until I get approved by my insurance. Otherwise, I have to pay out of pocket, and oh my gosh, it is very expensive if you want to pay out of pocket. It's expensive even if you're covered. This is something that I really had to commit to if I wanted to do it. And at this point, I had already bought my motorcycle and I had already started to learn my skills on it. So I thought, do I actually need it? But I thought that it would be very beneficial to have it. So I did continue to pursue it, and as soon as the clinic who was making my prosthetic, they said that I got approval, I told them I needed the weekend because I was still on the fence. This is a big commitment. Riding a motorcycle and buying one is actually also a really big commitment. At the end of the weekend, I thought, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna pull the trigger. And so I got it. I got approved for it. I got approved. I should have brought it now so I could show you what it actually looks like. But in subsequent videos, you'll definitely see it. You'll see me practicing on it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the actual unit itself. It was really exciting to get it, but it was also really weird because, again, this part of my life, I'd never really opened up to the idea of wearing a prosthetic in any part of my life. Doing this for the motorcycle, getting a prosthetic for the motorcycle, was a whole new world to me, and I told my prosthetist that it's something I'm going to have to get used to, and I will definitely reach out to them as a resource as I continue on trying to figure out how to attach the motorcycle attachment to my handlebar, and then attach the arm attachment to myself, and putting those two together and how they work together and how they might not work together, and what are the breakaway points, because I don't want to get in a situation where I drop the bike and then I go down with the bike because I can't separate myself from the handlebar, or if heaven forbid something happens and I fly over the handlebar, I get an accident, or I low side, high side, I don't want to still be attached to the bike. I want to be able to break away. So I spent an hour when I got it figuring everything out and figuring out how to detach myself either from the socket that attaches to my arm or from the ball bearing that attaches to the handlebar itself. So I got really comfortable with that. It was fine, but I knew that once I started to practice with the prosthetic, I'd be starting from square one. I would be starting back as a beginner. I'm still a beginner. I've only put 50 hours on my bike, maybe 1,000 miles on my bike. But in doing so, I did get used to the lean angle, compensating for my left side with my right side, learning how to stop, learning how to go. Having to do that again from the perspective of a prosthetic would definitely be starting over again. And it was. I've only practiced with it once, actually, because the first time I practiced with it, the first day, I started it in a skinny parking lot, so it was really long, but it was difficult for me to make a U-turn if I needed to go back and start from the other side. And when I started with the prosthetic on, mind you, I'm no longer on the left side. I'm no longer directly attached to the handlebar. And that's what freaked me out the most. I was attached to an attachment to a handlebar. So if you imagine, if you have a motorcycle, go to the motorcycle and get a stick and put the stick on the handlebar. Grab one side with your hand and then grab the other side with just the stick. And you'll see what it feels like. You just feel detached from the handlebar, and it was really scary for me because I no longer felt like I was in control of the bike. I left that skinny parking lot and I went to a wider parking lot. I just needed maybe a square one or a large rectangular one so I can turn around comfortably and get used to that. I went to this other parking lot and I started to practice with it, and it was touch and go. I thought I was gonna drop my bike, but I kept on the bike. I went really slow, and I would just do U-turns, left U-turns, left U-turns, left U-turns for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then I did it on the other side, right U-turns, until I got comfortable enough where I can do figure eights and serpentines. But I would go around one light pole on the right U-turn, one light pole on the left U-turn, and I did that for about 10 minutes. And I was getting a little better each time I went around, and it was still really weird because I wanted to lean more on my left side than on my right side, because that's what I had been doing and that's what I had gotten used to without the prosthetic. And then I decided that I needed to practice starts and stops, because that is very important, and that's where you're most at risk for laying down your bike, is at very slow speed or no speed. So I did a couple more serpentines and decided, all right, this was the time. This was the moment of truth. And so I turned around and I came to a stop and boom, dropped my bike. And it was embarrassing because I dropped my bike so spectacularly that I have engine guards on my bike, but I dropped my bike that it actually tipped over, where it was more upside down than it was leaning right side up. The engine guard actually made it so that it was tipped over on the handlebars instead of tipped over leaning on the engine guard and the tires. And that was a little discouraging. It was so discouraging, actually, that I haven't been back out on it. I've made the excuse that, oh, I need to get a little more practice without the prosthetic, just so I can get the foundations of riding a motorcycle, period. But it's because I'm just hesitant to get back on it, because I don't want to start as a beginner again. It's not a good feeling to go back to square one when you've built up these skills, and then to go backwards in time. It's hard. But I know I need to get it back out there. I need to find some better parking lots. I will get back out there. But I just wanted to give everyone a quick update on what it's like as a beginner riding with a prosthetic for the very first time. With that, I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to go for a run. It hasn't warmed up. It's still 34 degrees outside, but I don't care. I'm in Colorado, and it's beautiful. I love being here, and I'm just going to take in the scenery, and then when it warms up later on today, I'm going to take my bike out for a ride, and maybe I'll be able to wear the prosthetic and give you another update after. All right, everyone. Peace out.